Hey there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and my stamp studio here in Eagle, Idaho. It is a brand new month. Happy March, and it is Tuesday. That means it is time for a brand new stamp set of the month series. This month is being sponsored by Avery Elle, and I am playing with their brand new Peekaboo stamp set. It is the Peekaboo Flight stamp set. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any time, you already know I love everything Peekaboo that Avery Elle puts out. So it's no surprise to you that I am playing with the Peekaboo Flight stamp set. Now, Avery Elle, like I said, is sponsoring this month's video. They gave me an extra stamp set so I could give it away to you. Isn't that awesome? So thank you to Avery Elle for sponsoring this giveaway. And this month, there are 5 Tuesdays in the month. So you're gonna get 5 fresh new ideas with this stamp set that you can use. So to enter the giveaway, all you need to do is comment on all 5 of the videos in this month's series. And each video that you watch, I will have the previous videos linked for you below. But this is episode 1. So make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think of today's video and of today's cards, and then you'll be entered to win. So today we're gonna jump in and make some Slimline pull tab cards. I have a vertical card and a horizontal card that both have a pull tab. So I love interactive cards. Let's just get started. Okay, here is the Peekaboo Flight stamp and die set, and the pull tab die set I'll be using is the Slimline pull tab die set from Heffy Doodle. I'm also bringing in some of my Peekaboo pals. These are the Peekaboo Summer Pals, and then I'm going to bring in the Peekaboo Monsters. I wanted critters that were facing a certain direction, so there is a limit of those in the Peekaboo pal line, but I found a bird and this T-Rex, and I thought they'd be amazing. I stamped these on white cardstock with Copic friendly ink, and I will go ahead and color these out. I have Y04 as the lightest color for my airplane, and I'm going to cover all the parts that I want yellow with this marker. And then I'll bring in my darkest, which is Y19, and add in all the places where I want the shadows to be, or the darkest parts of this yellow. And then I'm going to blend that out. I wanted to use Y08, but mine is dry. Like, it is time to buy some refills. Is anybody else having this trouble? Oh my gosh, yeah, so I'm using Y06 instead. And then to accent the plane, I'm going to use some T markers, T1 for my lightest, and then I think this is T5 for my darkest, and then I'll blend that out with T3, and that will give it somewhat of a metal look by leaving a center highlight on those like bands. And sorry, I got a little off screen here. I always get so involved in my coloring that I sometimes forget that I'm coloring for you to see how I'm coloring it. So there's the airplane. I love how it turned out. Next, I'm going to color in the helicopter, and I'm using gray for the body. So I'm using the same gray markers that I used on my airplane accents. So T1 was my lightest. I colored the whole thing in with that. Then I brought in the T5 to add in those dark shadows. I'm going to blend that out with T3 before bringing back in my T1 and blending all of those lines out so they're softer. And I kind of like to color in a little bit of a circular motion when I color. I don't like to get like harsh marker lines if I can avoid that. So it's more noticeable on bigger images like this. And so sometimes you might have to go over your image another time with the same colors to really perfect that blend. I'm going to accent the helicopter with some B markers. So B18 will be my lightest marker, and I'm again coloring in all those areas solid with my lightest. And then I'll bring in my darkest marker, which in this case is B29, to add in those shadows. Now this is just really easy Copic coloring because these images are so small, but having the addition of a shadow really does make a difference. So I'll lay in that shadow area, and then once I have all the shadows, I'll bring back my lightest marker and just blend and soften out those edges. And don't you think this kind of looks like a police helicopter? I think so. So now I'm going to color in my T-Rex. I'm using G14 as my lightest color, and then I'll bring in my YG17 to lay in those shadows. And I also added some stippling or little dots with that color, and then I'm going to go over it with the G14. So the dots are actually going to end up being really subtle, but I love the look that it adds. And then I colored in the tummy with the same G14, but going over the dinosaur 2 times with that lightest color really darkened it, and you can see there's a nice difference between the tummy and the dinosaur itself. Now onto my bird. I'm using some yellows and reds, and then my T8 markers for the black. So my darkest T marker was T9. I blended that out with T7 and T5. Isn't he cool? He's going to look great flying my little airplane. So now I'm just highlighting all of my colored images with a white Jelly Roll pen. This is the number 10, I believe. I like to add little highlights of white and some dots as well. And then see here, you can, when you die cut this helicopter, the middle or the door cuts out. So you don't need to color that like I did. Now that everything's die cut out, I'm going to go ahead and glue in my little critters. Now these, you wouldn't have to use the hands on them or the feet or the wings or the paws or whatever you want to call them, but I love adding in their paws. It is the thing that really made me fall in love with Peekaboo Pals. So I'm going to go ahead and add in their little paws and or wing and have that fun detail there. Now here is the first boo-boo of today's video. I did not push record when I was ink blending Broken China ink onto Bristol Smooth paper to create my backgrounds. So I have 2 exactly the same. I splattered them with water, I sprayed them with Avery Elle Clear Shimmer, and I splattered them with white acrylic paint. So now I'm going to have one pull tab be going vertically for my helicopter and one going horizontally for my airplane. I'm going to die cut this out with a Heffy Doodle rectangle slimline die set, and then I'm bringing back in that pull tab set, and you can see there's a long die that cuts a long slit, and so I'm going to have one be over to the side a little bit more. That will be for my airplane to go like this. The other one, I'm going to put that same opening but more centered on this panel, and that will be for the helicopter. So I'll run that through the die. Then I'll die cut out the top that creates a notch for the pull tab. And then there is this die that cuts a arrow for your actual pull tab. Well, this piece I just die cut from the piece that was the fallout piece from cutting out the tab, so I won't actually have a piece that folds over like it's traditionally supposed to be, but I liked that it matched. Okay, so now I want to stamp this cute cityscape. This is the superhero stamp set that just came out from Avery Elle. I loved that city line. I thought it would be really cute with this stamp set. So I'm going to stamp these. Now here I have my second error of today's card. This is the one that's supposed to be for the airplane. So I should not be stamping the cityscape at the bottom of this card like I am here. I should be stamping along the longer side. But I didn't know this, not for a while. So I'm inking this up with VersaFine Onyx black ink, which is kind of a hybrid ink. It has a pigment property to it, so it stays wetter longer. I thought it would be the best ink to use over the top of all my ink blending and white paint splatter and all of that. So just remember how I said that it stays wetter longer. That's going to be a problem here in a minute. So now I'll set that aside, and I'm going to stamp along the side of this panel that's supposed to be for the helicopter. And I should have stamped along that smaller bottom edge. Well, I didn't, and I didn't notice it, but I will be able to fix it. But there's a lot of things in these cards that was just really frustrating. Like right here, I cleaned off my stamp, and you know, I want to stamp with it again. I'm going to move it. Well, it didn't actually come all the way clean. So right here, it left a tiny bit of ink transfer. I think it's time for me to clean off my rag that I use to clean my stamps. But it wasn't too bad, so I went ahead and stamped down and it was totally fine. So then I need to move my paper and my stamp over so that I can stamp the extra little portion of the paper there. So I cleaned my stamp off again, and because I'd had that ink transfer, I tried to like clean it off really super good. And I scrubbed it and I sprayed it and I did all the things. Then I moved it over and I'm going to stamp it this second time. And this time it transferred a lot. It's like I've never stamped. That's really what it's like. So now I'm just trying to make it work. I'm going to try to really line that up. So I put it down where I thought it would really line up, and it did mostly. It mostly lined up. But in the end, I decided it wasn't so bad that I couldn't just go for it. And, you know, things do not have to be 100% perfect. This was doable. So now let me tell you what happened with this panel right here. I needed to use one of the smaller slit openings from the pull tab die set to make the slit openings larger on both panels because I had stamped the cityscape wrong. So I did the airplane panel first and ran that through my die cut machine, and then I did it on this panel. Well, remember I used that VersaFine Onyx Black ink that stays wetter longer? Yeah, my stamped image had transferred to my cutting plate of my die machine, which then transferred to the background of this panel right here. So I went over my ink blended background, which, by the way, I did not push record to show you. I'm telling you, I was a hot mess making this video. And I used chipped sapphire for the edges so I could cover up that extra cityscape. So when I added that chipped sapphire, I got a little ink blending down onto the city, which it covered it up and it looked really light and pale. So then I stamped the cityscape again onto this gray cardstock because now I'm going for a nighttime scene because I had to add that darker ink, which, by the way, then I added more splatter to, I don't know, because the splatter was covered up, it looked kind of muted, and I like splatter. So I added more splatter, and then I added this stamped cityscape with the gray cardstock. I thought I would bring the windows to life a little bit with my clear Wink of Stella. It didn't actually show up very good, so I'll show you my fix for that in a minute. But now let's move on to the pull tab. So here I have two of the pull tabs cut, and I am cutting off the ends or the edges, the extra piece from one of them, and gluing them back to back to make it more sturdy because it's such a long piece. Then I can pinch the ends together and insert it through that slot. This is the place that I'm going to adhere the helicopter to. And that it's shown behind the dinosaur a little bit, so I need to do a little fix there. But I also wanted to make this more sturdy right behind where the dinosaur is. So I added a piece of clear window sheet so it wouldn't flop around. Next, I'm going to trim down that little spot that I need to attach my dinosaur to so it doesn't show. And then I'll add a foam square to that and hook on my helicopter. I did use a mixture of the foam square and liquid glue for that. So I'll make sure my pull tab is somewhat straight and adhere that down, and then there is my helicopter moving up and down. Now these are stabilizing pieces. This comes in the die set. There's scored lines that you fold on. You're going to add glue to the middle section, and my glue was clogged up, so I had to do that again. And you're going to glue that down and make sure that your pull tab is centered. And once it is, then press that into place, fold over the largest tab, put glue on the smallest tab, and fold that back over to secure it. Make sure that's really glued down before you start manipulating it. Now, because this is so long, I thought, oh, let's use two stabilizing pieces. Just so you know, if you're new here, I have made a card before. So when I did this, something's going to go wrong. And I'm sure if you've made a pull tab card or an interactive card, you can guess what it is. So there we are, two stabilizing pieces. I'm so clever. Only that is going to stop my helicopter from moving. It's not going to go all the way up. So now I'm deciding, can I remove it? Should I remove it? Should I just leave it? Then I decide to remove it. Well, now there's a gluey spot on the back of my card. So I just rubbed that off with my finger really good, like your finger is your best tool. So I decided one stabilizing piece is just fine. Then I'm going to put some foam tape all around that pull tab, but not inhibiting it from moving. And then I trimmed off the extra from the pull tab that I didn't need, glued on my little arrow piece, and I had a little more to trim off the top there. And there you can see he moves just fine. It worked out really good. So next I'm going to stamp a sentiment. I'm using Versamark ink and one of the sentiments from this set to stamp "The sky is the limit" on some navy blue cardstock, and then I'll emboss that with white embossing powder. My Versamark pad is brand spanking new. Isn't that exciting? And so my stamp got really inky and it made some of the letters, especially the exclamation point, look wonky. So I stamped it and embossed it again, and then I'm going to bubble cut around this, just making it kind of rounded. And then that will go onto my card. I wanted to pop it up, but I didn't want like foam squares or foam tape. I just wanted a little bit of lift. So I'm actually going to add on some scraps of cardstock to the back. So I'll add 2 layers. One didn't seem like quite enough, so I'll add one more, and that will give it just the tiniest bit of lift. I also love how sturdy it makes things. Having a sturdy card is really important to me. I love a sturdy card. So there is that sentiment. And then I wanted some stars because I didn't want this background looking too much like a snowy scene. I felt like it was looking a little snowy, so I added some star sequins in and around my helicopter, and I'm liking how it's turning out now, but it was touch and go for a while with these cards. I'm not gonna lie. I had to walk away for a little bit and come back to it, take a breath, because it seemed like every time I did something, it was not going in my favor. So I'm sure that has happened to you, and I want you to know you're not alone. We're all in this together. So to fix my windows, to give them a little bit more of a glow, I brought out some gel pens, and there was a yellow one in there, and it kind of gave the windows a golden glow, which I thought was perfect. So that fixed up my little village scene, or my cityscape rather, and I love how it turned out in the end. Sometimes you just have to persevere, keep going, redo something, and it all works out in the end, right? Okay, let's move on to card number 2. So I am adding in those clouds that I stamped, and I just highlighted around the outside with my T0 marker, I believe, and then I'll add those to the sky. And then I'm moving on to the pull tab, which I already did glue an extra piece to the back to make it sturdier. And then I'm taking a circle. Oh no, I'm going to stabilize it first. And I did only stabilize it one time. I learned my lesson. I have made so many pull tabs. My very first interactive card ever, besides a shaker card, was a pull tab. Like the first interactive die set I ever bought was a pull tab. So I should know how to make these. Okay, so now I'm adding this circle die from the the pull tab Slimline die set. I like that it kind of presses down that place where you adhere your image that you want to move. So that was a nice added thing in this die set. I'm going to attach this with a foam square, and I'm attaching the airplane by its wing to that pull tab. Then I have a sentiment that I wanted to kind of unfold as I pull the airplane. So I was nervous after all the trouble that I had had with these cards. I was so nervous that this was not going to work out. But I just took my stamped sentiment and added a piece of white twine to the end. I have it sandwiched between 2 foam squares, and then I glued on a little piece of cardstock. I'm running my crease tool over the sentiment very gently and folding it very gently so that it doesn't have a harsh crease. And then I'm going to add my twine to the back of my airplane as well. So I put a glue dot on the back of the airplane and then on the end of the sentiment, because the sentiment is going to be adhered just at the end where the flag is. So I added a glue dot and glue there. Then I still have that glue dot on the back of the airplane that I can attach my trimmed twine to, and then I'm going to cover that with a scrap of cardstock as well so the glue dot doesn't stick down to anything. Okay, so you're going to fold the sentiment over, put the plane over the top of it, and then once we pull the plane, yes, it unfolds. So my idea worked. You just have to make sure that you refold that banner in half when you push the plane back. The plane isn't going to fold it over. Then I added my decorative arrow piece to my tab and trimmed off the extra. And then I die cut that decorative arrow piece from yellow, so I had a little more yellow in my card, and I love how this turned out. So I was happy that my idea worked, especially after all the trouble. So I added that to my card base. By the way, both cards measure 8.5 by 3.5, which means you start with a piece of paper that's 8.5 by 7 and score it at 3.5 to make your slimline card. So there we go. There are my 2 slimline pull tab cards, and I am very happy with the results, especially after all the drama. It did make the process of making them take a little longer than normal, but I do love these airplanes. Like, I was so giddy that, oh my word, I have a helicopter stamp. I don't know, these things make me happy. If a helicopter stamp makes you happy, I have all the things I used in today's cards listed and linked for you below. And I will be back again next Tuesday with episode 2. So stay tuned for that and some other videos in between. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe because I do have new videos all the time. Let me know what you thought of this video with a thumbs up and a comment to be entered into the giveaway. Happy stamping. Bye.